Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District February board meeting. That's the first order of the agenda. For the second, do I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Let's do roll call.
Okay, Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
And Al.
Aye. Moving to the third item. Consent agenda. All items are going to be approved with one motion. To start the conversation, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Discussion.
Just a question. Nothing that has to be answered right now, but I was just looking at the Woodbury and the White Bear Lake street sweeping grant side by side, and something just kind of surfaced. I was just interested in maybe taking a moment to kind of consider the different approaches that we're funding through these grants, and what it might mean for future years with respect to continuing support from the watershed district. So that's the White Bear Lake, city of White Bear Lake allocating its grants towards equipment replacement. The question is, does staff have an estimate of what additional funds White Bear Lake might seek in future years to support this purchase? On the other hand, the city of Woodbury has consistently partnered and requested grants of kind of the similar magnitude for supporting additional or expanded street cleaning. So just a question in my mind at this point in time. I know the staff is working on data from last year. I'm kind of wondering at what point in time will we be able to assess what's kind of the optimal practice that we should continue to fund.
Okay. Yeah, I think but I think we'll have that street sweeping stuff next month for you.
So it was just, the two street sweeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Make a quick comment on the Gallowitz summary. I like this is the first time I've seen this format. Appreciate it.
Oh, for their billing.
Mm-hmm. Generally, we have a pretty good sense, but it seemed like it was new this month, and I like it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or discussion topics? Wonderful. I'd like to call a vote.
Okay, Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
And Al.
Aye. Moving to item number 4. Seeing that there are, I believe, permit participants. Anyone online like to use 4 minutes to provide a visitor comment? Go ahead and come off mute if that's a yes. If not, you can stay muted. Okay. Moving forward. Item number 5, regulatory program.
Good evening. There's one permit this month included on not included on consent, excuse me. Some of you may be familiar with the former Ponds at Battle Creek golf course in Maplewood. That was an Ramsey County owned and operated golf course that shuttered in 2019 and has been sold to a private developer and for a residential development. So that permit request for the project full build out is included this evening. There were wetlands on the site that were identified in the delineation. Due to the nature of the golf course, there were also some constructed ponds. The historical wetlands that our rules and the rules of WACA protect are all to be preserved with this development. I should also note that our natural resources staff has historically managed some of the wetland and buffer areas over the years. And to my knowledge, we stopped doing that when the golf course was closed. But there are still presumably some good high value vegetation native communities. So the majority of the buffer is to be preserved as well per our rules. But there is a variance request for both temporary and permanent impacts to the buffer as well. I think, there's a number of figures that illustrate where the buffers are proposed to be impacted, whether that's temporary for grading or permanent for like usable yard space. Some of the permanent impacts are actually existing golf cart paths as well. So I just wanted to make that clarification. In the final condition, the average wetland buffer is proposed to be met per our rules. So there's a couple locations where the variance is being requested for that minimum.
Can I ask a real basic question?
Yeah.
Could you remind me of the RGU jurisdiction versus the LGU jurisdiction?
Yeah, there was a environmental review done for the site, just due to the size and the density of the development. And so the city of Maplewood administered that process as the RGU.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's really where they participated.
Yep, and they noticed it to the public, obviously, and we did provide comment to them as well.
Building on those questions, just point of clarification, on the city of Maplewood, they hold the easement, which is good. And then the HOA, they're responsible for the maintenance of the buffer areas then, so our team wouldn't be doing that?
That's correct. The city is in the process of developing a pretty substantial developers agreement right now. So that is not finalized yet, but the city will hold those easements over that area, and they're indicated by their staff. They have a process to, if the HOA fails to maintain those areas, they will go in and do it and assess it back to the residents.
Does that count for inspection too?
It will count.
Or
Yeah.
Our criteria?
Yeah, well, any temporarily disturbed buffer areas will need to be restored per our rules before the permit's closed.
Okay.
Long-term though, we typically don't do inspections, if it meets the,
Let me clarify my question.
Yeah.
So during the construction, who's accountable for the inspections?
For the construction inspections?
Yeah, so we will do the permit ones. It's not that we're giving rights to the city of Maplewood to do all that. Is that
right, yeah, we'll still be inspecting the
okay.
wetland areas, yeah.
Okay.
Cause that's part of our rules too, so.
Is this proposed to be, I understand it's a private development, but is it, I'm thinking the heights where the actual development is occurring over a long period of time, years. Is this one that would be more typical where the developer will be building the homes, or townhomes as well, single family? Or are they going to be selling lots in which those new owners will be building it out over a period of time? So, I guess it's really that question.
Yeah,
From an inspection standpoint,
yeah.
is it happening kind of over the next couple of years, or is it going to be over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, and we do have Deb from DR Horton, which is the developer representative, and Dave Nash from Alliant. I might have to defer the question about scheduling and phasing to either one of you. If you could speak to that.
Yep. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Deb Ridgway with DR Horton. Thanks for having us. So we're the applicant and the builder. We are probably looking to work with a developer partner though to develop the site for us, and then we buy back the finished lots. As far as phasing for the project, we plan to grade the entire site at one time and get all of the buffers in the native areas established and seeded. Well, not necessarily established right away, but we want to get those seeded this year so that we can get to the establishment phase, which is going to be multiple years in reality. So Yes, we will. We're working with a developer partner. We're gonna probably phase, so we're doing 2 phases for the project. Grading will be in 1 phase, and then we're doing probably more than half the units this year, half the lots, and then depending on how market goes, we'll be back next year to put the streets and utilities for the remainder of the lots, if that makes sense. Did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you,
Okay.
Deb.
Yep.
So I think maybe as a follow-up, they'll be the only applicant for this site. There won't be
Mhm.
future.
Yeah, it's not like the Heights
Yes.
connection,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the average like lot size? Because if they're not building all the homes, wouldn't those then trigger a new sediment and erosion control permit when those go to construction?
Yeah, our permit will remain open during the lot construction as well.
It would be all under this same.
Okay.
ordinance.
Yeah, unless there's a permit transfer that happens, in which case we would need to collect a different escrow. There's a process for that, but otherwise, yeah, the permit will remain open until full build out.
Are you thinking kind of the 1 acre threshold? Most of these lots appear to be likely much less than that.
What's the, no, I just,
well, if it's like half the
Thank you so much.
neighborhood, that would be about an acre from now.
the acres for the stormwater management, but the erosion control permit is like 10,000 square feet of disturbance. But if this permit is remaining open,
Then it's
that answers my question.
what, so on the HOA stuff, and knowing that we've talked about riders that we put on to house purchases, what kind of maintenance requirements or other requirements are placed to these homes? So I looked at the layout. There's one townhome that eats easily into that minimum buffer. And not saying that this person is, whoever owns that house will do this, but I've definitely watched folks dump leaves and everything else. And since that buffer is so small, I'm just kind of curious what kind of maintenance riders or mechanisms are going with the house to help the homeowner understand what they can, should, and should not do.
Yeah, our rules in the city of Maplewood historically, they've also required signage, like posts. I haven't reviewed the developer's agreement yet, as that's been mostly between the developer and the city. We do anticipate getting a copy of that, and we were even talking about a development of this size to have maybe a meeting between the developer, the city, and watershed, just so that we can like preemptively kind of hammer all that stuff out. But I know that DR Horton is working with City of Maplewood staff on that as well. Deb, I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, we actually just received the draft of the developers agreement earlier this week, so we haven't had a chance to really look at it. And yes, it is a substantial document, so I'm sure that there's a lot of details about kind of this sort of stuff. As far as the HOA documents, so the encroachments are in the townhomes, and the townhomes have common grounds maintenance, so that's part of the HOA. Additionally, when we set up the documents, we don't allow people to do any improvements outside of the building envelope. So really, they're limited to what can and can't be done as far as potentially encroaching into those buffers and for disposal of debris or whatever. So we do disclose that, and we do hire some good grounds maintenance companies that will abide by that. So I think that should give you some level of comfort that, you know, with the common grounds maintenance, it shouldn't be an issue.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm wondering about the retaining walls. There was one figure that showed kind of their location. Looking at construction notes and other detail, I didn't see anything that referenced height. I see that it's a 2-to-1 kind of ratio, but the physical height, are they standard all one, or is it vary depending upon the location? And if you could comment about what that range, if they vary.
I'm going to defer that question to Dave Nash. I didn't think they were really tall retaining walls, but Dave, if you can chime in on that.
Yeah, this is Dave Nash with Alliant Engineering. All the retaining walls through the site vary in height. We have one wall that we're asking for an encroachment agreement or variance, and bear with me when I get to the grading plan and I can tell you the height of that wall. That's the wall in the southwest corner that actually the wetland is off our property on the gun range site. But the buffer extends into our site. And that wall is very minimal. The tallest part of that wall is 2 to 3 feet. But there are other walls on the site outside buffers that are taller than that.
What's the tallest?
Ooh, I'd have to go through. I can see one here that's 4 feet. We try to keep them at 4 feet or less.
Yeah, I guess what my thinking in asking about the height is, I'm not an engineer by training, but it seems that there's a aspect relationship between the intent, in particular that one in the south, that wetland to the south, which is off of your project area, but yet you would be installing that retaining wall. And there's a relationship in terms of the height of the retaining wall and the change in grade, such that it would have whatever the degree of permanent impact in the buffer. So by my way of thinking, a taller retaining wall very likely might have more of a, I can't say necessarily a footprint, but it's like you're stripping away a higher portion of the hill, and natural grade might suspect that there would be more of that buffer. So I'm thinking there may be a relationship between the extent of the buffer and the height of the wall. That's why I was asking about the wall height.
The extent of the impact on the buffer, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. I know we're rapid firing questions. I do want to take a moment to compliment how you guys are trying to meld this build into the existing wetlands and provide some good space. As I look at some of these areas and seeing the bounce of wetlands during wet years and how close some of these structures are to the wetlands, what mitigations are y'all considering to make sure that both the wetland and the homeowner is happy? Or maybe rides through a high bounce year versus a low bounce year?
Well, I can speak to how we review that in our rules. So the applicant has demonstrated that for any fill and low-lying areas, they're providing compensatory storage to meet our floodplain rules.
Okay.
But we also have freeboard requirements. So they, had to model the 100-year water level of any existing and proposed ponding on the site, and meet that 2 foot of separation. So
I was going to ask, and it wasn't explicitly called out. There's a couple of structures that are like right there. So they all kind of made it with gradings as planned. Is that
Yeah,
what
so
I should,
the
I could
separation from the 100-year to the
to wherever it is,
The
be it
lower-
height or distance.
low
right?
floor.
Height.
Level.
It's height specific.
It's height specific.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And if I can add Dave Nash again, one of the struggles on this and our goal beginning when we started was a lot of the existing wetlands had no outlets other than existing ground EOFs. And because we were putting the development here, It was our goal, and we did end up providing a storm outlet for every wetland. And yet, as I said, we're meeting the freeboard requirements required by the city and the watershed. And yet we're also limited by WACA on how much we can bounce those wetlands from existing to proposed. So it was a balance act, but in the end, I think we have a better drainage system now that we actually have mechanical outlets for all the wetlands.
Curious, those outlets, are they essentially a subsurface, culvert, or are they, I know on the north, maybe northeast, I saw in the figures some surface conveyance, I don't want to call them ditches, but some of the wetlands in the south. There's a fair amount of topography in this site, and are you able to create those outlets solely by grading or by subsurface culvert?
No, well, we have flared ends at the wetlands edge and then that storm sewer extends and gets buried as the grade changes, but there's no drain tile or subsurface in the wetlands themselves, just above grade flared end sections.
They're pipe outlets.
Pipes, yeah.
Piped outlets, but much of the pipe would be subsurface.
Well, yeah, all the pipe would be
Yeah.
underground, yep.
Yeah.
Just one question, an outlet B, or there's a pond 2, which seems like it's completely surrounded by homes. Because I know we run into this situation in our city, just making sure you have access to that for clean out.
Yeah, if you look at our plans, yeah, we had to provide an access up a Clover Street. There's an easement and access down to the pond.
Perfect, thank you.
Ben or Gabby, any questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve permit 2606 Century Pond with Maple Leaf?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Gabby. Now, Mark, you looked at me like you might have a subsequent set of questions. You're welcome to ask them.
Yeah, I fully understanding that there's been excuse me, a fair amount of back and forth as you're working with the city, and then probably working with staff in their review, that what's presented to us tonight is the result of those previous negotiations. And I guess what I'm leading to is, as I look at the figures, and particularly the couple of the figures showing the location of the buffer encroachments, and that comes down to the variance requests is probably what we need to take the action on. I'm having a sense that if somebody didn't want to have, I'll just use this as an example, somebody did not want to have or was willing not to have sodded area, that they might be interested in more of a natural vegetation. And that's becoming more and more common. We're trying to promote that with our stewardship grant program. And so I'm just wondering the degree the furthest that we can take the buffers that are presented. Is there any more room for, and I'm not suggesting that we negotiate here, but any of those buffers?
So any flexibility post sale when you have someone lined up. Yeah, and I will mention too, this just for your information, and it doesn't have to change your viewpoints in any way, the city of Maplewood has reviewed this extensively as well and did approve this variance. But during the sale of lots, Deb, is there opportunity if a homeowner didn't want the lawn, or is that kind of set in stone?
There is, however, most people through the mortgage companies require that the yard be established within the first season after closing. And so we're always challenged with having to get the turf down, obviously, so that they comply or so that the lot complies with a mortgage. That's not to say that we wouldn't allow someone after the fact to create a natural vegetated yard. But that's the struggle that we deal with is the mortgage companies and the escrows that they hold and for how long they'll hold those once a house closes.
I do know when we started talking about this development, I don't know, at least a year ago, we had mentioned our grants program, so that could be a way that, maybe the watershed has some involvement in converting some of that turf grass back to a native vegetation community. So we can certainly maybe work with Deb somehow to I don't know, advertise that somehow, that opportunity is available.
Yep.
That's of interest to the board.
Yeah, thank you. I would be interested in that being applied to the extent that can be.
Second. I mean, when you look at how developed out it is, I'm happy that they've found places for the residents to enjoy the wetlands.
Yeah, in addition to the trails, the developer is also working out with the city of a public park, the playground as well.
That's great. You add on top of what Mark was talking about, if we get some natural lands growing there and natural grasses as this populates out, I think it's going to be a really unique tie-in of residential to the environment. So I think it's cool. Awesome. Are you ready to vote?
Roll call, Ben,
Aye.
Nay.
Stephanie. Aye. Gabby
Aye.
and Bill.
Okay. Passed unanimously. Did you want to discuss your position, Mark, any further, or are you just for future since it's passed?
I guess, yeah. I've spent a lot of time on this site in the past during some of my work. And following the discussion of what the county was going to do with it, there was lots of dialogue. And there was a lot of interest by a number of residents and council in the need for housing. And so I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the challenge on a site like this with the topography as it is, the number of wetlands that are present. I think they've done a pretty good job. Probably my misgiving is the density, and that density comes down to the numbers of the cost and doing a development like this. And so I guess that's probably where I am, is a little bit of pushback in terms of what those realized values might be in a prospective development. And so, yeah, that's probably where I'm at.
I mean, just to be clear, we don't control densities, like that's not,
Yep,
part of our review process. But I understand what you're saying as it relates to
Right.
But you know, we're looking to make sure that it meets our rules, and when there's a variance, I think, is there, I don't know if we want to state anything in particular about the variance that, the reason for the mayor.
Yeah, looking at the figures provided, to me, it seems like there is some opportunity there to have, reduced some of those encroachments additionally. And I also appreciate that, the city has a larger buffer than what we do. And that they, were willing to, permit this, recognizing that it was have a, larger impact on those buffers. But when we think about what the intent, what the usefulness of buffers is really all about, and it certainly is the water quality, there's also the ecological side of things too. And they do meet the average, and I understand that. But it's in some of the specific locations. That's where my decisions come.
One thought that came to me while reviewing this went along with what Mark's been saying. A lot of the variances that come to the board have to do with the average buffer. And we do allow for average buffers in our rule, but it's kind of a discussion that would have to be had at another time. Do you want the minimum to be increased and just get rid of the average and just say you'll meet this, or you'll ask for a variance and be specific in the request?
We have an action on the board. We have an action on the board to talk about buffers and effectiveness, if I recall correctly. I think that's a good place to do it as we look forward.
And that wouldn't change the need for a variance in this case,
No.
because you have to meet minimum
Yeah.
and average.
Yep.
Yeah, so. But I just want to say for Dave and Deb's benefit that the permit was approved. It does not need to be unanimous in case there was confusion.
I'll do a better job.
Thank you.
During the discussion.
Thanks for attending as well.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, moving forward to the regulatory monthly memorandum.
So a lot of different meetings and trainings. It's kind of that time of year. Please let me know if you have questions on any of those.
I do on the Minnesota Wetland Professional Symposium.
Yeah.
What did you learn on wetland restoration?
Yeah, so all three of us actually attended. It was in West St. Paul, the Dakota Lodge, packed house. There's probably well over 100 people there. One of the coldest days of the year so far, but it was all about wetland restoration. So there was a presentation by someone from Bowser about their development of seed mixes. And I think one thing that stuck out to me was they're working on something to specifically combat reed canary grass. So it's more of an invasive response seed mix, I guess, if you will. Paul probably knows about this much better than me. And then another presentation was from a case study that I recall that stuck out to me was a mining operation. And we weren't able to figure out where the site was located, but effectively they transplanted 6 acres of like wetland to another site by digging up the vegetation and just like moving it.
One skiddy at a time, 6 acres worth.
Yeah. So they were referring to the donor site and the recipient site, like a medical.
Medical, yeah.
It was fascinating to see something like that on that scale.
Be clear, is that a best practice being promoted?
Well, they needed to mine under, where the current wetland was, and they were able to, the mining company own this other recipient site. And so it's very like a very unique circumstance, but just the fact that they were successful at it kind of blew my mind.
I think there was such high quality and diverse vegetation, they wanted to keep it intact. So that's why they did it by basically transplanting the rooted structure of all the plants instead of just seeding the new location.
Was there, I mean, did this happen like 5 years ago? So they've had some time to be able to monitor it to see the level
Yeah.
of success.
I think it started in like 2022 and it took like a couple years. And then this past year was like a monitoring year. They also were dealing with threatened and endangered species. So they had to like keep the habitat in the same general location. I forget what species they were, but it was some sort of like dragonfly and another species. So I think that's why they were like doing it so diligently. Is there's a very specific type of habitat these endangered species liked, and they wanted to keep that habitat exactly as it was.
And effectively the recipient site was like across the street and
Highway.
down the road. Like it's pretty close, but
It's crazy.
It's pretty fascinating.
yeah, because Paul had just like brought that up to us about a pond, and I had never even heard of that prior to that. And so then to very shortly after that, watch a case study of like a way bigger scale that was successful was interesting.
Yeah, I was in Illinois. I have the presentation you guys sent me.
Mhm.
Demand for local affordable aggregate in the Chicago region.
And then also money was not a limiting factor with the mining company. So that's another thing to mention, is that it was a high cost.
You always learn something interesting. It is fascinating.
Yeah, and then another one that, you know, that stuck out to me was, oh my God, my memory. Another watershed district, Comfort Lake, Forest Lake, was speaking about their wetland restoration prioritization tool based on historical land use. They were finding that historically agricultural areas were contributing disproportionate amounts of nutrients to their receiving waters, and how to effectively get 80%, they use the 80-20 rule, how to get 80% effect from 20% of effort. So they were targeting restoration areas based on historical photography, actually, and then monitoring as well. But
I just thought it was so pertinent, given that we're going to be talking about some wetland restorations as we go.
yeah,
Insightful, crazy.
Yeah.
Insightful.
that was really interesting. Anything, there's probably more that I can't remember.
These are the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were taking like corings from the wetlands that historically received drainage from dairy farms and just finding like pollutants that were like had settled there, and they're doing big dredging projects of those and removing a significant amount of pollutants from like 3 wetlands versus then targeting like 15 small wetlands. So they found doing regional practices for their program worked well, but they also have a lot more agricultural land.
So much to read and learn on that. Thank you. Any other questions for Nicole?
And I just want to mention, if you remember Cooper, who's been with us for years, communications intern, he will be transferring over to the grant and permit programs for BNP inspection and some active construction sites as well. So he's already
How has his email blast been received?
We have an update about that for you next.
Yeah, and similar to the last part of the enforcement report, we do have an update on our closed permit BMP inspection program. So we could go into that, or share my screen here. And just for context, we came to you about a year ago this time to talk about what we were hoping to improve about our closed permit BMP inspections. And so we just wanted to provide you some, quick updates about where we've been the last year and what we're still looking hopefully to do. So Kendra and Mary will be taking over.
So just familiarizing everyone with the team. You already know us pretty well, but just wanted to mention, who's out there in the field. And then we work quite a bit with Gareth for all of those underground inspections. So just wanted to make sure to include him because there's a lot of legwork on knowing how those systems function. And so to put it in perspective, we have 63 more permitted BMPs than the number we came to with you last year. So we're now at 2,085 permitted BMPs. So we're recognizing that this list is ever growing. Nothing's falling off the list. It just exponentially grows. And so with our program, we're trying to get ahead of how do we stay on top of this when our staff numbers are pretty finite. We're not growing at the same rate as our BMP list.
So like last year, our barriers are pretty much the same. We're still prioritizing active construction inspections over closed permit BMP inspections. And that's due to a greater risk of immediate impact, having an open permit, active grading, exposed soils, as well as those regulatory deadlines through our permitting process. We also still are seeing communication issues between like owners changing hands, lack of ongoing engagement, especially for older sites, and then sites failing to follow up on reporting. And then staff time constraints. It's a more intensive process for older BMPs trying to track down maybe owners who have now switched hands and could be unaware that they even have BMPs on their sites. We've also seen a good amount of undeliverable contacts, even with some of our newer email blasts that have been sent out, or newer permits that have closed. So that is something that requires more time. And then this is just a review of our 2025 program goals, increasing our enforcement frequency of closed permit BMPs, holding owners accountable for maintenance following permit closure, creating a website submittal form, which we'll get to, and increasing coordination with cities on closed permit BMP maintenance inspections, as well as active construction as well. So I don't know if you've traveled to the webpage very recently, but we do have a closed permit stormwater facilities webpage under the permit dropdown. And hopefully this works. I have a little video. This is what the landing page looks like. General overviews, types of BMPs that we inspect, general maintenance requirements, and connecting back to landowner requirements from the maintenance agreements. And then that's the stormwater facilities annual inspection submittal button for when landowners submit their annual inspection form.
So we have gotten 15 submittals via that webpage so far, which is a small but mighty number up to the 0 from before. But it's actually a really helpful link to now have and landing page. It's helpful for continuity if staff were to ever change. It's always the same link. You're not having an outdated staff email. Something really easy that we can put in emails when we're closing permits or working with someone. Just use this link, submit here. Really quick and easy, and we can even use, interns and other staff to send it, and they don't have to worry about, well, now all of our emails are going to an intern. Like there's just a standardized submittal form that we can use. So it's been really nice so far, and we're actually getting pretty high quality inspection reports. I just did a screen grab of one from a professional inspection company, but I mean, super thorough. Went to every single structure on the site, manhole, catch basin, inspected it, and we're just finding them to be really thorough submittals too, which is nice to see. And so speaking of those email blasts, when we say email blasts, we want to make sure we call out that Cooper is taking the time to personalize each one with site-specific information for the name of the permit, the date the permit was closed, the type of BMPs on the site. So, email blasts might sound generic, but they're each hand personalized by Cooper, which is pretty time intensive, but we found that to be really helpful so people know exactly what they're working with. And they've been really helpful to take kind of a lot of the legwork off of staff time, trying to get, again, landowners to be accountable for their own BMPs and their own inspections. These reminders are educational but firm, that they have specific deadlines to get their annual reports to us, as required in their maintenance agreement that they signed at the time of permit issuance. And so we did 72 reminders this past year of permits that were closed between 2022 and 2025. And then this year we plan to go back a little farther, a couple more years, but then also send it to sites that have closed since we sent this last round of emails.
Are you getting like red receipts just to know if it's like needing follow-up, knowing that it's actually been opened by the recipient?
Yeah, we have a list for follow-up as well. I didn't include the follow-up numbers, but we have a list of people who responded, deliverables, or no response. So even if they read it and didn't respond, we're still gonna follow up with them and say, hey, we need something from you, acknowledgement of some sort. So, and then we have a list too of people that did respond, which was longer than we thought it was gonna be. But yeah, we do have some follow-up to do as well with those.
I think the personalization is really good. When we watched it at the watershed conference, quote unquote email blast, which is why I keyed on it, it was very generic and people just ignored it. So the personalization must have helped.
Yeah, I think
It's
like
very time consuming.
time consuming, but, and I'm sure maybe a future database could do this more streamlined for us than a manual entry, but them, I think, recognizing it's someone personally emailing them with exact site information is maybe they can recognize that that is someone emailing them and it's not just like a generic
Or frankly, spam
or
phishing.
spam.
How many responses did you get?
I don't remember off the top of my head because Cooper was dividing in half how many people should contact me versus Kendra. We were avoiding them have contact Cooper because we didn't know he was staying on with us and he was the communications intern at the time. So they were meant to reply to us. I mean, I think we should get numbers. I talked to probably at least 20 to 30 people.
Quite good.
Yeah, which was more than I was anticipating. And he made sure to spread it out so it wasn't like all at once. Yeah.
You can totally build an AI agent.
Yes, we already wrote it in our wish list for our database. In some way, like they can still be personalized, but like the computer does it for you. Like it has a template, but then all the personalized things are inputted depending on the permit you're clicking or something like that.
Another fun topic to geek out about, actually.
So you heard or had conversations with like 30 people. Were they largely, can you break that down? Were they, you know, gee, I got this email and I kind of know about it, but I need some help, or I know nothing what this is, or hey, thank you for doing that. We'll get this to you in the next, you know, whatever, 3 days.
Yeah, I think there's like 4-ish categories. There's people who it's brand new information to them and they're panicked. We had a decent amount of those, I would say. Another category where they're well aware of it, they don't have the resources to do something about it. We find that often to be schools. Like, we know, and we're like, we're trying. Third category, they're like, yep, we have someone coming to inspect it this August. Is that okay? I'm like, yep, that sounds good. And the fourth category is like, they kind of know about it, but like they didn't know they had to report about it. They're like, but we maintain it. So we're just like looking for a little bit more information from them. So yeah, I'd say there's a good split between those 4.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
Is this covered in our grants? Maintenance? Inspection?
Permit BMPs do not qualify for a maintenance grant because they were required. However, we are trying to work on maybe allowing schools or someone that is another public agency without MS4 requirements. How can we maybe better?
Yeah, we have offered it to one school district in particular, but they didn't have finance for that either. So we're gonna try again.
Or
Yes.
Okay.
Speaking of which,
Yeah, I would just like to kind of highlight the successes of the program this last year. We've coordinated a good amount of on-site meetings with both landowners and public organizations on maintaining their facilities.
providing guidance on site with the O&M plan, and walking through that with them. Mary and I had the chance this past year to present to about 40, 50 maintenance staff members for an apartment complex, just teaching them more about the BMPs on their site and what it takes to maintain them. I think that was really successful.
Yeah, if you've heard of Roars Companies, they're a developer, but they also maintain management of their apartments they build. So they brought in all of their ground staff from around the metro to learn about how to maintain BMPs. And it was new information to most of them that they had to do something about the ponds they're seeing on their apartment facilities.
And then, yeah, providing guidance via email and phone, following up from both the email blasts as well as like when we do our enforcement inspections of closed permit BMPs. So yeah, I think a lot of traction from those. It's good.
And so looking ahead, we're really hoping to get just more of those enforcement BMP inspections completed. We didn't get to too many this year, just with the large amount of active sites we had, plus with Nicole's maternity leave. It just kind of got stuck low on the priority list, but we're hoping now with Cooper's help this summer that we can get to quite a few more of them. We're going to continue with those email blasts, and we're really hoping to have a standalone meeting with landowners, not necessarily the permit applicant, but the person who is now responsible with the BMP that the project's done, meeting with them on site at the time of permit closure, so we can like walk with the O&M in the field and like talk through it with them. We're finding that like the permit applicant will often say like, yep, they know what they're doing and they have their O&M, and then they walk away, doesn't actually know what's going on, and they're just are being handed things that were signed off for them. So trying to be more intentional about those in field visits. Similar to our initial erosion control walkthrough, it seems like if you meet someone in person on site, they just having that familiarity, they're like more likely to do something, like rather than it just being all via email. So we're really hoping to get on site more with people. Also hoping to meet with more MS4s to discuss their inspection processes. We have a lot of permitted BMPs for MS4s, and they are obligated to inspect them because they're an MS4. And so to try to reduce that inspection redundancy, we're just hoping to get their inspection information so we know the condition of all those public BMPs without actually necessarily having to inspect all of them ourselves. We do have some resources we want to add to the facilities webpage, just some like supplier lists of inspectors in the area they can hire, or some plant ID information and things like that that we have gathered. We just need to finalize and put on there. And then we're dreaming up some new database auto functions, kind of like the one we discussed, where we can automate a lot of this and even take more of it off of our plates in the future.
Part of the permitting, have you all considered maybe not every year, but 1 or 2 years outsourcing some of the BMP inspections? Is that
The closed permit BMP?
Just thinking about the priority being the ongoing permits, it feels like the right priority. And it doesn't feel like we need to have a huge dive through closed BMPs every year. Have you all considered, in terms of options, what it would look like if you outsourced?
Yeah, we haven't talked about hiring anyone like an outside consultant necessarily. I mean, we do have bars assistants for underground inspections, but you know, typically, you know, the last number of years, that's been the goal of the seasonal staff for our program. And then inevitably there's like, oh, it's a crazy construction year, or someone had a baby, and so it always falls, and we're trying to like not let it fall again, because it always.
It might be an interesting thing to pursue, just, or at least look at cost out if it makes some sense. Maybe it's like every 3 years you outsource. I don't, just out of curiosity.
As a reminder, we do on our organizational chart have an open position, or a position that was penciled in for BMP maintenance specialists, both for our regulatory program and our stewardship grant program. So that is something that we could look at, kind of comparing what would make more.
It might be just an again, you don't have to do it every year, but like maybe it is whatever X years y'all tell us, and we can figure out, oh yeah, it makes sense. Let's hire this contractor group, focus on that, doesn't distract from y'all outside of government guidance. Just thought.
Yeah, Nicole Peterson, who interned in 2023, she only did closed permit BMP. She did not get trained in active construction, and she got a lot done. As soon as you add construction to the plate, that's where it just is really hard to keep up with both of
Full
them.
respect, and there seems like there needs to be a lot of experience when it comes to that, to notice it, have the foresight for it. Just, you know, I like the intern pathway. To me, that's a supplement. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and keep saying maybe with the new database, but that's another kind of clunky thing about inspection right now, like is just familiarizing yourself with our current system. But I mean, yeah, it would just take some time.
Comment earlier where you gave a presentation to the apartment maintenance crews. That was very proactive in terms of going after an audience that perhaps isn't clear that that's their responsibility. And it's not the first time I've heard that. I think HOAs also aren't aware. Yeah, keep looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, we were teaching them how to read a plan sheet and how you could maybe interpret on the plan sheet that could be a stormwater BMP, because it might not always be obvious to the untrained eye. So giving them tips on that, and correcting mowing practices was a big topic, not to mow down the slopes of all of these BMPs. And we largely walked away with a lot of people being like really excited that they learned that. They're like, wow, this is all news to me. And so yeah, it started as just like it was going to be a one-on-one field visit with the person responsible for that apartment. And then he was like, I actually lead our maintenance program. I invite everyone. I'm like, sure. Then it ended up being a lot really big. It was really good. Yeah.
I think looking forward to like more proactive visits like that, especially incorporating like in-field visits with landowners.
Yeah, and a lot of those companies, I have to believe, have seasonal staff too. So maybe there's opportunity to do that, you know, on a consistent basis with some partners. But
Keep getting better. That's awesome, man. Good presentation. It's super promising. I guess we'll add that database to our data discussion.
long wish list.
Any other questions from Nicole?
Yes. Where is this photo taken? I think I know.
Oh, in the
so is it like looking north on Bielenberg? Like
that's in Oakdale at those impact apartments right off the Bielenberg bridge. Yeah. When they I think they let us inside for a tour, and then we got a picture in the stairwell looking down.
Awesome. Stewardship Grant Program. Do you pay?
Ashley.
There she is.
Yeah, she's here.
Good evening. Yep, so we have application 2602 for the Pioneer Park Pond Buffer Restoration. This is pulled off consent agenda because we are proposing to recommend the 50% at a max of 15,000 per phase, which is how it was originally designed. And then due to potential impacts to the resource as well as budget savings, the city is proposing to do it all at once. So that's why we've pulled it off. We are recommending that 45,000. Again, impact to resource and budget saving times. So
We have done that in the past where the board has allowed those phases to be combined, rather than 15,000 over the next 3 years or so.
So it's like each of those 15,000 is for a different area or different.
Yep, and those are laid out in the plan set that's attached, the different phases and the areas.
So those different phases are not necessarily time related, they're more location related?
Correct.
Yeah, when we originally talked with them, they thought that they would do it over 3 years, so that's why the design was split. like that, so they could do phase one, year one.
Yeah.
But then, like Ashley said, they just decided to combine them.
I'll take any questions if there are any.
No, that was my question. I had that in my notes about that, so I'm glad you highlighted it. Looks like projects are coming in.
Yes, they're coming in hot and fast.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. As we look at that overall site, how many grant dollars have we contributed to the improvement of Pioneer Park?
So I can't speak to the reuse system that was installed, but for the northern ponds that were put in to expand the existing reuse, as well as capture and reuse the water park water. That one was, I believe, approved for 100,000. They haven't submitted for reimbursement because that was just wrapping up last year.
Yeah, and then we had our targeted retrofit for the
That's
reuse
what it was
project.
targeted.
Yes, and at that time, that was when we brought up the idea of this restoration to them there, and they were on board with it.
Do we also expect them to apply for our maintenance grant?
I believe so, Ashley, right? They have.
Yep. I anticipate a maintenance grant as well. They're planning, they have already thought about it. They are planning to contract out the maintenance.
So as you look at the total amounts, that would hit all in this year then? Is that,
Potentially, yes.
For the 45,000.
Yeah, unless they have delays or something, we pay out next year.
yeah, I mean, it's early on. We have the dollars to cover it today. I'm just trying to understand, are we saying no to something else because we've crunched them into three? Assume not.
No, this is allocated, they have up to a year for reimbursement.
That's what I was.
We're
curious
looking
about.
at our total budget on the next, pay available funds for.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve stewardship grants 2602?
So moved.
Second.
Let's go ahead and vote.
Ben,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Stephanie, Gabby,
Aye.
and
After you, enforcement report, sorry. Ashley.
budget.
I mean, budget, that's what I meant.
Budget, yep, we've got, you just saw all the applications that have been approved. We haven't had any staff approvals yet. So decent little chunk of money went out, but otherwise I'll take any questions. I did pull out and add a couple lines for the prioritized chloride, and whether or not a chloride project would be in the impaired or at-risk water subwatersheds versus outside of those areas.
Thank you.
Ask, where does the partner grant fall in your table?
Into the ghost background, it will get added in.
And then that's what goes up on the website too?
The partner grant is being finalized right now. We're still working through some of the details and we've got the application, the online application is ready. We're between communications and grants, we're reviewing all the materials, making sure it all makes sense. And then looking to push that out here at the end of the month. We'll probably target some specific partners as well as publishing it district-wide.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for Ashley? Moving right along. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Going to attorney report. Tori.
Good evening, everyone. Aside from our kind of regular contract document review. We published a notice for the bid for professional services. Those have been, should be coming in, and you'll be voting on them at the March meeting. And that's all I have for tonight, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Questions for Troy? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Jumping to board discussion topic.
Yeah, I was going to. So I think I shared this as a kind of a summary learning from the watershed meeting back in the beginning of December. And at that time, the head of Bowser in kind of our closing session had made a pitch to stay connected to the folks that provide our funding. Or appoint us. And so in my case, it's the county commissioner. So I did pull together kind of a 2025 highlights of watershed activities for my county, Washington County. Ran it by Tina for some excellent edits and corrections, and sent it to the two commissioners in my area. So it was fairly painless. It did take a little bit of thinking. Highlighted for us in my city or in my county, the Woodbury Target stormwater retrofit, enhanced street sweeping grants, the work from education engagement, both in the classroom as well as for the watershed management plan, and then our efforts with the Get Gritty salt reduction, and then next year's kind of highlights as to the 2026 flood resilience studies that are going on in Tanner's, Battle Creek, and Battle Creek Lake, especially the including the manufactured home in landfall. So
was it received well?
Well, someone has responded. So it's been a busy January, but yes, that's where one of the commissioners kicked back saying thank you, but just also curious about how board positions are filled. So at least it was opened and read.
That's a great idea. I think Mark, you've sent to the commissioner prior. I think it'd be good for all of us to take a run through it. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I've had a little bit of interaction with my county commissioner in my area, and it seems like they're going in lots of different directions, and a little summary of what watershed has been doing. They would appreciate that. So it's a great lead.
And midterm elections are coming up, and yeah, just all sorts of opportunities. They're paying attention.
Did you happen to also send it to your House Senate representative?
So that was another topic. I kind of is it beginning of March is the legislation day. Yep. So maybe it's another opportunity. I mean, I've mentioned it ever since I had an opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with her. We are on first name basis wherever I see her. So I mean, it's excellent that way. But yeah, maybe a good talking sheet to take into those.
Yeah, y'all had some really good pamphlets last year.
Yeah, I think I'll work with Lauren on putting together something that you can share with your representatives and the ones that cover our areas.
Yeah, I got to sit with Mark last year. It was fun, very receptive. I bet they're going to be very, very receptive.
Being an election year, yeah.
Yeah, good opportunity to invite them to Waterfest or any other event.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Any other topics or board discussion topics?
Board discussion. Yep. All right. Is this the action log?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
We'll cover that in the administrative.
Yep. All right. That's where I was going.
Cool.
I'll wait.
Let us jump then to new report, new technologies. EFAB, the ones that you brought up.
Me.
Yay. Yeah. The first one up here is a new technology report. So this is the first one of the year, I believe. We're striving to put these in the packet at a little bit more of a consistent cadence this year. So you'll see these about every other month or so. So this is the first one. PFAS, synthetic chemical that is extremely resistant to water, heat, oil, and as such, many of our stormwater BMPs just simply are not capable of removing it from stormwater. And so this new technology summary looks at two products in particular that are very similar as you read through those descriptions. The way I sort of think about it at a real high level is Aqua Block is more of a sequestration product, like a cap. It is bentonite clay that with an aggregate mixed in with, there's a product to bind essentially and hold it in place so it doesn't destroy it. It doesn't just, it just tries to keep it where it is. And that, whereas the Aqua Gate is more of it's a similar product, but the intent is more that it is injected into the sediment a little bit more. Both products, again, are applied more to that sediment bed. So these are intended to keep the PFAS chemicals kind of where they are. And so they're protecting surface waters by not letting them flow downstream. You get to the end of the summary, and the qualifier here is that the application for these in more traditional surface stormwater applications is at its infancy. It hasn't been widely tested, and so it comes with all of the qualifiers that it could and possibly should work in stormwater ponds, but for that application, there's quite a bit of site-specific testing, pilot testing that would be needed before sort of a widespread application. So it's unique in that, this is, the industry is looking for products where we can treat these pollutants, and there are two that we add to our toolbox, and if the right condition, the right setting presents itself, we go look for what can be applied.
So question, it sounds like both of them are meant to exist actually near under the sediment level. So in situations where there's disturbances, what happens?
Well, with a capping type of technology, the intent is that you
can't disturb.
You can't, or you avoid the disturbance. There has been testing on here when you on these where you look at like the freeze thaw, and what they found with the bentonite material in particular is as the freeze thaw occurs, there's fissures that take place, but then
it's thick enough.
It's thick enough where it self-heal, but it goes back into a homogeneous sort of layer. But the idea with the sequestration is that you would cap it and not then disturb those sediments, and that's one of the considerations with a surface water application, particularly around culverts or streams where you've got moving water, and there's that potential for erosion and mobilization. So not necessarily a great setting for that, but
that's what I was going to ask. It doesn't also sound like it'd be good for a motorized boat area either.
Correct.
It sounds like a absorb, so at some point in time, it sounds like it might get saturated, fully filled up. What happens then?
Yeah, the literature talks about, there is a binding capacity to the media, at which point then it no longer has that ability, and so you would either need to, in the case of the Aqua Gate technology, place more media, but in the case of like the Aqua Block, where it is just a
sequestration. The intent is you're just providing that barrier, right? So it's you're preventing the PFAS from migrating through that block to get to the surface water. So with the aquifer gate, yes, if the intent is to remove it, you'd have to go back and add new material over time.
And, you know, I appreciate the opening paragraph talking about filtration. I'd love to see these kind of compared in terms of maintenance costs, because in my eyes, not with all these unknowns, it still seems like if we're going to make a move now, filtration seems still a more viable option. But I'm curious as you guys learn more about each of these, what it looks like. More of a comment.
Yeah,
that's all. I look at all the variables about effectively holding stationary at the bottom of the lake and how likely that is to succeed versus not succeed. It seems like there's a lot of variables.
Do we know, are there like PFAS hotspots in the district?
You know that the PFAS has been identified in the groundwater in the eastern part of the watershed.
Yep. Yeah, I think those are the primary.
The groundwater.
Yeah.
Over in Woodbury.
Yeah.
Oh,
and Oakdale.
Yeah.
All part of the same aquifer.
Yeah.
Washington County.
Just keep one coming through.
I'd be really interested if BAR, knowing that we have impacted areas, if there was an experiment, we'd be willing to commit. I don't know, BAR, the staff, if there was something they just want to try. Just curious.
There are other technologies being tried out now.
Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of it seems like we have a unique opportunity to actually trial with some of the waterways that we have, or the water bodies that we have.
Yeah, with all of these new technology reports, we have a spreadsheet list of them all that as projects come through, we revisit that to try to find that balance between being reaching for innovation versus not using it. And so we keep this running list and look for that right setting where we can apply some of these. And so these will absolutely be part of that, and we'll look for that opportunity.
And sometimes we'll seek out opportunities maybe through the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council. Partner BAR will have a staff, and we'll partner with them to help with some of the monitoring or implementation of that. So that's a potential too, if this topic becomes part of the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council's charter.
It seems like a problem that's not going away, a problem that has new ideas that we so often.
Yeah.
Not that we have to get in the mix of all of it, but there might be something promising to try out. No deal. Awesome. I love the report. That's cool. Less happy at the fact that Aquablock was the majority of your references, but I get why.
Well, yeah, I think given the one case study that was kind of cited, it seemed like that was.
I'd love to see more diversity, but yeah. All right. Wetland restoration.
Yeah, so these next three are work plans, otherwise known as scope studies. So this is, outlining the work that we're going to be doing this coming year. So we don't have formal presentations for them, but if you have any questions about any of the work that's planned for this year, I can answer. Is there any questions?
I had a question.
I had a question. Shleddy wetland, kind of like, I was just thinking it's somewhat similar to Shoreview's Cottage Place wetland because it abuts some residents. So learnings from the Cottage Place project that we could apply early on to the Shleddy neighborhood.
Yes, yeah, we'll definitely factor that in. So this one would be a little further out, but I think we'll have, depending what our scope is, for the restoration, but more earlier neighborhood meetings. It's hard because I thought we did a good job with Shleddy, or with Cottage Place, but I think maybe having more of those renderings of what it's going to look like. I think that tree removal at Cottage Place was very much a shock for people, which I don't blame them by any means. So having some of those visuals ahead of time, that outreach, for that we did yeah, we had public meetings, we did next door postings, website postings, so figuring out how to best utilize that and target. This is a larger area, but yeah, we'll definitely factor all that in.
Yeah, and at that point in time, it might be a couple of years down the road, so
Right.
Cottage Grove or Cottage Place has kind of come back, and it might
Yeah.
be interesting if there are any neighborhood testimonials to
Yeah.
say, oh God.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I know that, just thinking back to some of our Cottage Place people, there have been 2 people I can think of who were very, opposed is very strong, but they were, when we cut down the trees, they were very vocal that they did not like that, and then they've called since and have a little more appreciation, so hopefully they feel that way with everything. But yeah, that's good to keep in mind, and I think we could use some good visuals from that process.
I had a adjacent question. Do we know if there's any HOAs or kind of associations in these areas with the
Around Schletty,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if there's any public, like how
I
you
think
figure
there's
that
a
out.
lot of single family homes.
Okay.
Which we would, at this point, we're looking to stay, it's a lot of City of Little Canada property and then that St. John's parcel. So that's primarily where we will stay. Yeah, there is one large property that it looks like it's in a foreclosure or soon to be foreclosure, so keep our eye on it.
Oh, question on the tasks. What's new on the Whitman functional assessments? I think there is talking about quantitative assessment for the updated Wisconsin Minnesota Wetland Rapid Assessment Method from Bowser. Just curious, what's the
Yeah, I don't know those specifics, Brendan, I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
I have to check.
So the MinRam methodology that was used in the previous, well, Mark probably could even tell us. Mark could probably tell us about that. Mark, can you explain the new?
Well, yeah, I mean, the old.
It's adding value, Mark? In terms of
Is the new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a much improved product. That actually was what I was going to bring up in the action log. Is I think it would be helpful as we get into talking about wetland buffers and potentially considering the rules, the bounce rules. It would be, I think, valuable to have a presentation discussion on this new tool. It's being proposed to be used here, and I certainly welcome and support that. That's what we ought to be using now. It's a far better product.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah, so the last time we did MinRam assessments on all of our wetlands was like
Early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s, maybe 2007, yeah, somewhere around there. So I think it might be time to update that anyway. I think that might be a nice discussion in our plan or an action item and implementation.
I love it. Yeah, I tried to Google it. I couldn't find a delta between them. Some rate that I could understand.
Go to the Bowser website and
They have
under
a backlog
wetlands.
or something.
There's a tab that Minnesota, Wisconsin, and there's like a user's guide, and there's the tool itself. That's a spreadsheet, Excel.
In truth, I appreciate your experience saying that yes, this is better, because that was really hard for me to conclude when I was looking around.
I will say this, there's a little consternation, a little inside baseball, whatever, a little consternation between the 2 states. They really wanted to go forward 2 states. It largely got worked out, and I think what's been released thus far is probably a little better than a beta version, but suffice to say that I think there may be a revision that might come out in the next year or 2. So if we were to kind of do the big
in the plan,
we might want to wait a couple 3 years, but that's just, I don't want to editorialize a little bit before we get to that time.
just as a reminder that MinRam assessment that we did is what sets our ABC classification system, which affects our buffer requirements.
Yeah, it caught my attention. I was like, oh, we're doing something new on this particular tab. Curious. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a good test to redo it on these other sites, you know, kind of one by one to see how it compares.
Don't have any other questions? See it work? Anyone else? Gabby on item 10A, 10B? Good. Cool. Let's move up forward to the Battle Creek Subwatershed Feasibility Study, Phase 2. We can just shoot questions if that works. I think that's a good way of dealing with these information pieces.
So is this TSS only?
Yeah, so Battle Creek has an impairment for TSS, and last summer, well, most of the year, there was a really extensive monitoring campaign that watershed district staff completed. And the intent for that intensive monitoring was identifying where is the loading coming from. That way that could inform this study to make sure that we're putting the BMPs in the right places to address that sediment, the impairment for the creek.
I was just wondering, because it's impaired for other items too, right?
Well, no, it's impaired. TSS is the impairment.
Okay.
Well, it's impaired for IBI,
It's aquatic life.
aquatic life, but the stressor on the creek is TSS, is what was determined. But we have done extensive subwatershed analysis for water quality projects too, so that part's been done, and now the TSS for phosphorus.
Yeah, I really liked the kind of the layout. Go back to the stressor ID document and the data that was just collected this past year. Look at the previous feasibility, you know, BMPs that were put together there. I think that the scope is well captured. I think that this could be a very productive examination of kind of what our next steps will be. So I look forward to seeing what comes out.
I will say that this is the same team that is doing the outlet feasibility study for Battle Creek Lake 2. As we look at those outlets by flow regimes, where we can see those benefits, and we'll tie both of those studies together to do some work plan in your packet last month.
I was going to ask some clarifiers on that, so just to make sure that I regurgitate it. So there's dependencies on what they're doing between this and then the Battle Creek, the outlet structure that's called out in the scope of work. Does that accelerate the timeline to these tasks? Or do these tasks have to complete simultaneously, these scope of work efforts?
They're going to be done in parallel. It doesn't accelerate one versus the other. The task that has to be done first is the evaluating all the monitoring data that was collected, so we understand what the relationship between discharge and sediment load is, and that then informs the outlet study.
So this is a dependency more so on the creation of said outlet.
This study is looking at locations off the creek where are there BMPs that we can put in to target those inflow points. So they're looking at slightly different locations, tributary areas to the creek. That's where they're. Okay. They can be done in parallel. They can complement.
But the same team's doing both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't catch that. That's good. As we look forward, are there other? I have some questions on the program summaries later, but are there monitoring solutions that we should be considering for as part of this? In terms of, I was looking at the potential BMPs, that there certain monitoring solutions we can see that the TS is proving outside of the manual monitoring that we do? Like any automated monitoring?
As far as informing
how the improvements the TSS are going with time.
Possibly. I mean, I think some of those recommendations are going to be an outcome of studies.
Oh, okay.
You know, for example, monitoring may inform how you might operate something upstream, monitoring, depending on what we see in the data that was collected before, monitoring could inform performance of BMPs
So
that
that'll
are
come through
recommended.
F2 then.
That'll come, yeah, that could be an outcome of this.
We do have outlet monitoring that we have done for years and will continue to do, you know, so it is more of a, for TSS, at least for the impairment, it's a longer term
Yeah.
look. It's not a,
Yeah, it's not like you're getting every day. It's more,
Right.
I'm just curious as we look at some of the conversations we have, we're collecting data, doing those sorts of things, are there solutions?
I'm just scanning through here, see if I can pick it up or not, but I think the focus is probably on TSS, but in terms of the conceptual analysis and the data that were collected last year, I think there's potential to maybe consider things outside of TSS itself in terms of flow regimes and such that affect TSS. So I'm just encouraged that as this goes forward and develops it, not keeping it narrower, but having that broader concept and scope, certainly, you know, at this early stage. If that makes sense.
multiple benefits, right?
Awesome. Any other questions on the Battle Creek subwatershed feasibility study? Jumping to item 10D, 5-star state feasibility study. Same pattern as before. Let's just jump with questions. I did have just a quick question. I know there's a new Atlas model coming out, right? As we look, is that something that's being considered as part of task 1, or is it using the 14?
So right now, everything that we are doing is with Atlas 14.
Okay.
The draft numbers for Atlas 15, this is the new rainfall data. The updated schedule on that is winter of 2026. And winter is the term that was communicated to us. I know, I sort of, I joke, I don't know if it's a Minnesota as defined in
Meteorological.
right. The intent, Noah's intent is that the draft is coming soon, this winter that we're in now. They'll have a 60-day review period, public review period. They will close that review period, and then their intent is to release final numbers yet this calendar year, but that would be a fall, winter, end of the year of 2026. So we won't start incorporating. We usually, when the draft numbers come out, we will use that maybe as a check, but we won't. There can be changes based depending on the comments they receive.
Yeah, I was peeking back to some of the resiliency phase studies that in that particular area, you know, there are habitable structures that are at risk, right, as perceived, and less so than some of the other manufactured home places. And I was curious if updated data would change that outlook. I have no point of reference.
When it comes to resiliency, and we would reference it for a study like this, is the watershed does have maps that show, you know, risk of flooding during a given year, but also future rainfall projections that were developed. So that allows for that quantification of, if this goes in, this is how your risk changes. That could still be flood prone, but you may realize benefit. So we would use some of those previous products the district has created to inform communication with property owners in this case.
Super happy that the property owners even engaging in this. My mental thought was comparing the two manufactured homes, one where we had, let's say, more challenges or experienced more challenges versus this one. More habitable structures are at risk at the one we had challenges for this one. So I was just, as I look at it, I was trying to gauge, is that still relevant? Okay. Good question. Yes. Step 3. The last statement, when I read it, my gut initial response was, I appreciate that reflection on the management team, but this statement to me signals uncertainty on the part of the property owner in the way it's written, meaning that we've budgeted for one, but it's only at the permission of the property management. So could you give me a bit more insight in that?
Yeah, our intent, I mean, will be working with and talking with property management.
But there seems like there's an uncertainty in the actual property managers. This is about constituents, the residents. We have one meeting budgeted for in-person meetings with the residents. And that seemed like it was one of those things that I know we had talked about at the other manufactured homes. And so I'm happy that they're being considered. You don't want to introduce residents to something if it doesn't happen. I can respect that. But the way it was worded led me to feel uncertain on that the property owner might have some uncertainty. That's kind of what
I see. Yeah, I think the uncertainty maybe on our part is that the property owner has, as we walk through the site, they had some very locations and ideas and improvements that they wanted to evaluate and consider as part of this, and how the potential for those change given their site constraints and so forth, I think is to be determined as we work through the process here. And so certainly if they're considering things that has a much broader impact, then we want that information as we go and figure out if we have a viable project.
This particular place could use some assistance in multiple ways, I would say.
Yep.
Okay, so they're thinking of other things.
Yeah, there was, I believe with that walkthrough, there were more than a handful of different areas, improvements that were discussed about collectively together would all get towards mitigating flood risk, which is the intent here for this property.
Okay.
And so this work plan is for that feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
As we work through that feasibility study, we go into it with that complete list of ideas up front, and then as we work through those, we'll identify that, yep, some will be feasible and they'll advance, and we'll refine those concepts. We'll get to a point with other ideas where for one reason or another they may be identified as not feasible, or the property owner may say, no, we're not interested any longer in that, and those then fall off the list. And so we want to get through that discussion, or as far as we can through that discussion with the property owner, so we know that we're bringing concepts forward for things that
are more stable, Mr.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions on 5-star estates? I really like that we're going after these types of projects. I just want that. I want to see it be successful in land. Awesome. Administrative report, Tina.
All right, so I have some informational items about meetings from the past month, as far as upcoming meetings as well. You see the CDC meetings there, the legislative day. And Mary had sent you an email about the strategic planning workshop dates. So those are on there as well.
Good question about that.
Yeah.
Those two dates, Mary, are they the same material or expected that we would attend both?
Expected to attend both. One will build off the other. And we'll be sending more information, including an agenda. So if you're not able to attend like the full length of both, which we told her that is kind of a big ask, that you'll at least know maybe if you wanted to join for a particular topic, you would know what time that started at. So she's still working on drafting those, and I'll get that sent out once I receive it from her.
Yeah, she said really the intent, and it's for our community partners as well, you know, that can't commit 8 hours at times, so be able to pop in and out as needed. So whatever time you can give to that effort is appreciated. Mm-hmm. We're expecting staff to participate in the full two full sessions, but
I do anticipate there'll be a way you can provide feedback. You can't attend at all. You can provide feedback via email. We're also planning to record them as well if you want to view them at a later time. And I do know for the first one, for like the first bit of time, she wants to kind of lay some groundwork if you want to be more familiar with what we're actually talking about.
They're more interactive.
Yeah, I think they'll be very interactive. Yeah.
Small group breakouts. I mean, it's all online.
She said she knows 8 hours sounds intense, but she said people are always surprised how it goes by because it's interactive and so yeah, won't be a lecture for 8 hours.
Remind me if there was any remote options.
It's all.
It's all.
It's all.
Oh, it is
online.
all.
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't recall.
Yeah.
8 hours.
Yeah.
Hours
2
remote.
days. 4 and 4.
There was an option to do it all one day. I thought that might be
We do have 10 days in between.
Yes, try to spread them out nice enough to give you a break, not too far that you forget.
Yeah, we also originally we were going to do them in early February now-ish time, and just decided that we couldn't expect our community partners to have the capacity at this time, based on current events, to be able to participate in that. So we did push it out, but with the caveat that we would kind of monitor where we're at all March in that way. So just be aware of that. The board action log, Mark, you mentioned the wetland assessment. I can add that to it. I'll probably put a note that it'll be considered as part of our watershed management plan update process.
Did you want to combine the wetland balance stat?
Yeah, I
and
could
the
put all
buffer
the
size?
wetland stuff together.
Yeah, let's just have a day wetland.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, because it feels like they're all going to drive to the same outcome.
Yeah. The payroll issues, actually good news. I just got an email sitting here that it looks like all of our HSA stuff might be taken care of. That was kind of the last thing we've been waiting on. As I've mentioned in here, this has been a long and frustrating process. I would say that, I want to commend Redpath. They've really been good advocates for us. They've been keeping us up to date and also pushing on My Pay Solutions to right their wrongs. And there might be some discussion still on kind of how they can kind of make up for some of the issues they've had over the last couple months. And as I mentioned in here, we've already had been talking to Redpath about switching our payroll vendor, but that's for sure happening now. So
good.
We'll be doing that probably before next month's board meeting. And then the Mika Award. So this lovely loon print is hanging above our water fountain in the hallway, so you can take a look on the way out. But the team here that you see in the picture was down at the Mika, and Nicole was there as well for part of it. Conference to receive the award, and Paige gave a nice little summary of the project and showed some pictures and talked about it. It's a nice event.
Great photo.
Project. Yeah, that was fun.
That's probably one of the more impactful projects we've toured in my mind. So I really like it.
Yeah. And then my last update is for Minnesota Watersheds. We have the legislative event. Emily sent you all as well. So let Emily know as soon as you can if you're able to attend. And I will work with Lauren to put together some materials, a highlight sheet that you can share with legislative members. Let me know if you do plan to set up meetings with any of them, and I can try to attend as well if you'd like. It might be a little difficult. It'll be interesting to see how the scheduling goes and if you're able to make any scheduled visits with them. But yeah, just keep me involved, or if you'd like my assistance in that, I can help as well.
Do you have a sense, the range of issues that might be discussed? There's kind of the official 3 issues that Minnesota Watersheds has put forth. And I'm not sure that some of those at least are as strongly represented or need, and you know, for us, I mean, is there room for just collegial conversation more broadly outside of those?
I mean, I think it's both. I think it's, sharing our successes and maybe challenges the coming year. But the three priorities, one is the state agency permitting efficiency, which does impact us. Regulatory approaches for chloride contamination.
That's certainly,
Definitely part of us. And then the last one is a little niche, but it's about allowing watershed districts and WMOs to be able to self-insure for health benefits. It's kind of just a miss in the legislation where it doesn't allow special governments to use that for potential savings in health insurance. So I think it can be both. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
How would you recommend us approach some of the new planning activities that we're embarked on? Part of this, we could use it as a sounding board for some of the issues and other mechanisms going into the new plan. Is that the right venue, or is that something we should wait for it to more mature?
I mean, I think it's probably good to mention, and I'll have make sure Lauren, includes that in our
that we're going through our 10-year planning right now.
Yeah, going through our 10-year planning, maybe highlighting some of the top priorities and issues.
I was just trying to think, and it's building off of something that Stephanie brought up in the discussion. Talk to them often, early, and see how it goes.
Keep them aware. Does anybody know that they will be attending the event on the 3rd, I guess?
I'm contemplating. I haven't decided for certain, but I'm kind of leaning toward it.
From work, I will probably have to choose between attending something like this versus the other workshop. So I will need to figure that out.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. So the 4th is our board meeting as well.
Fourth is our board meeting, and then 2 weeks later we'll have another couple workshops on the 16th.
Yeah.
Or one workshop. Spring breaks in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be in touch before then with some more information.
It's great. Jumping forward to the projects and program status reports. Any comments or questions? The one I want to spend a little bit of time on, J. So anything before J.
Yeah, question on B. It says BAR is preparing to discuss the development of chloride reduction strategy. Is that something that we could see the slides of, or
from the public works one?
Yeah, the public works one. Yes, thank you.
I'll get those from Tyler, right?
Yeah.
Sure, yes.
Yes.
That already occurred, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Can somebody kind of capture what the take? I mean, were they supportive?
I would
Is it a big
say,
challenge?
yes, they were
Oh my.
chatty that day. Usually there's a lot of discussion, but I don't know if I don't know. It was good, like a good meeting. So we talked about the watershed management plan process. Ashley spoke about the new programs that we're piloting for 2026 stewardship grant program. And then Tyler talked about the chloride reduction strategy, and then Dave and Gareth talked a little bit about our pond cleanup program. So I think overall
was good, very supportive. I think there wasn't a lot maybe to react to. More just providing them information. But for the chloride management, I don't think there was any concerns.
I think there are a lot of excitement about the potential for grant funding for that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking through that. Yeah.
Comments? Okay, I'll talk through the lake monitoring. I appreciate the lengthy and clear set of challenges that face us with these monitoring solutions in terms of lake level monitoring solutions. What I'm curious about is how do we take some of these learnings that we've amassed over for cell reception, freezing, growth of vegetation to figure or deploy a more robust solution. You know, thought about how to mitigate some of the risks that we continue to see, or is this just how it works with these monitoring devices?
A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think the first, maybe the first comment, just as a general one, is that this more lengthy write-up focuses on the stations that have been problematic.
Yes.
So this is a subset, a small subset of the many stations that the watershed has.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking with Chris, who leads our maintenance and setting these up, it's one of the first things he noted. He's seen a number of times we set these up and they just go, right? And then there are other times where the location isn't quite right. There's complications here, as he's describing. And so this write-up was intended to focus on some of those that we've had more ongoing regular maintenance needs in order to keep them operational. It's not necessarily a general characterization of the monitoring stations in general. So that said, we were talking about the term adaptive management earlier, and that's sort of what Chris and district staff work through with these locations, is when they're finding issues or problems at that site, it's okay, what can we do to change that so that we're not repeatedly dealing with vegetation every single year. We're not repeatedly dealing with the same thing that takes it offline every year. And sometimes you make a modification and that doesn't address the problem, and we do have to go back but the intent is that they're working through things where we can try to address that as they go.
It's good, and it's good to keep a focus on it, because I can tell you that if things go offline or if things look squirrely, we put a lot of coins in the bucket of trust for a lot of the constituents, but a coin is taken out of that if they see data that doesn't align with them. Now, this isn't the whole district. I totally get that. Just trying to think, finding solutions for some of these folks will be helpful. That's good.
Yeah.
How many total lake level monitoring stations do we have? Hundreds?
No.
No.
Eric might know that off the top of his head.
So we have 18 lakes.
I don't know off the top of my head. Like 10 or so, maybe?
Yeah, 10 or 12, probably.
Yeah.
So this represents a pretty healthy chunk.
About half of them. But when you're talking about monitoring, you're also talking about rain gauges and a couple other monitoring solutions. This is how I internalized it.
Yeah, the lake level.
Flagged it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 4 of them that they've had. They're the 4 that they keep returning back to. So it's
repeat
of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I read too.
Mm-hmm.
I think each of these lakes, except for each of these lakes, have a pretty large presence of population around them. Cool. Everything else looks awesome. I don't have any other comments. I'll open it up obviously for others. I did want to mention the anti-bird strike window film is a great idea. You should definitely do that.
Good to have your support, thanks.
Well, I mean, I've seen it work amazingly well in other larger buildings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, manager's comments next month's, oh, sorry.
I was just going to highlight the partnership, the natural resource program with the county. I think that's just outstanding. Kind of share staff, share expertise. There's maybe potential for that to bloom further.
Yeah.
So,
A really good meeting with them and already discussing this year. And yeah. We discussed we are partnering with them on a biochar kiln, and we were all at a lake symposium yesterday, so we missed the opportunity to see it in action, but we're hoping to see that soon.
Okay. Item 13, manager comments next month's meeting. So it sounds like we have a couple of just really quick board level actions. One is if you have comments or questions concerning the mission, the core principles, and you want to write them down for Bar and Tina and staff to think about and consider, please try that. Please deliver it before March or sooner than that.
In the next couple weeks would be helpful. Yep.
And then the second thing, as you all chat, you'll send the summary of when it's the summary of the CAC, if you don't mind.
Oh,
That'd be
sure.
great
Yep.
for next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like we have an the staff approvals, acceptance for some of these workshops and legislative events. So just to make sure that it stays on everyone's radar. Awesome, that's it. Any other comments or questions? I think we do voting for roles. So next month, if I recall correctly. So think about what role you want to play.
Oh yes, for our annual meeting.
For our annual meeting
Yeah.
next week. Just wanted to month.
Mm-hmm.
Time flies, man. It'll feel like next week. We have a motion to adjourn.
motion for adjournment.
Wonderful.
I'll second that.
We are adjourned.
Feel better, Gabby?
Yes. Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.